Question 1. Comparative studies suggest that when migrating sensitive customer data to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI, the most critical factor influencing region selection is often overlooked in the initial planning stages. Considering the varying legal and regulatory landscapes across different countries, what is the most prudent approach to ensure compliance and mitigate risks associated with data residency? Option A. Select OCI regions based on their geographical proximity to the largest concentration of end users to optimize network latency. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that specifically evaluates data residency requirements and relevant compliance mandates before selecting OCI regions. Option C. Prioritize cloud region selection based solely on the lowest available OCI service costs to maximize budget efficiency. Option D. Choose OCI regions based on the immediate availability of all required OCI services, irrespective of their compliance implications. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that specifically evaluates data residency requirements and relevant compliance mandates before selecting OCI regions. Explanation: Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a cloud architect to balance the immediate need for rapid deployment with the long-term implications of data residency and compliance. The architect must consider not only technical feasibility, but also the legal and regulatory landscape governing data storage and processing, which can vary significantly based on the origin and destination of the data. Failure to adequately assess these factors can lead to severe penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves conducting a thorough impact assessment that specifically addresses data residency requirements and relevant compliance mandates before selecting cloud regions. This aligns with best professional practices by proactively identifying and mitigating risks associated with data sovereignty laws. For instance, in many jurisdictions, data pertaining to citizens or residents must remain within national borders or be subject to stringent transfer agreements. A comprehensive impact assessment ensures that the chosen OCI regions comply with these regulations, thereby safeguarding the organization from legal repercussions and maintaining customer trust. This proactive stance is crucial for responsible cloud adoption. Incorrect approaches analysis. Prioritizing cost savings above all other factors without a proper impact assessment represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Many compliance frameworks mandate that data protection and residency are paramount, and cost should not be the sole determinant of cloud region selection if it compromises these requirements. This approach could lead to the accidental violation of data sovereignty laws, resulting in fines and legal action. Selecting cloud regions solely based on proximity to the largest user base, without considering data residency laws, is another regulatory failure. While user experience is important, it does not supersede legal obligations regarding data handling. This could result in data being stored in regions that are not compliant with the originating jurisdiction's laws, leading to non-compliance. Choosing regions based on the availability of specific OCI services, without verifying their compliance with data residency and privacy regulations, is also a critical oversight. While service availability is a technical consideration, it must be evaluated within the context of legal and regulatory constraints. This approach risks deploying services in regions that are technically suitable but legally prohibited for the type of data being processed, leading to compliance breaches. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to cloud region selection. This involves 1. Identifying all applicable regulatory frameworks and data residency laws relevant to the organization's operations and the data it handles. 2. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates how different OCI regions align with these requirements. 3. Prioritizing compliance and data protection alongside technical and business objectives. 4. Documenting the decision-making process, including the rationale for region selection and any identified risks and mitigation strategies. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating the assessment as regulations and business needs evolve. Question 2. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire to migrate all on-premises applications to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, within the next quarter to capitalize on perceived cost savings. However, the current security posture and compliance requirements for the sensitive customer data handled by these applications have not been thoroughly assessed in the context of OCI services. What is the most responsible approach to address this stakeholder request while ensuring security and compliance? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive security and compliance assessment of all applications and data intended for migration, design and implement appropriate OCI security controls and configurations, and then proceed with a phased migration strategy, prioritizing critical workloads. Option B. Immediately initiate the migration of all applications to OCI, leveraging the most cost-effective OCI services available, and address any security or compliance concerns that arise post-migration. Option C. Prioritize the migration of applications based on their perceived cost-saving potential, and only implement security controls for those applications that are flagged as high risk during or after the migration process. Option D. Proceed with the migration of all applications to OCI using default security settings, and then schedule a security review after the entire migration is complete to identify and rectify any potential issues. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive security and compliance assessment of all applications and data intended for migration, design and implement appropriate OCI security controls and configurations, and then proceed with a phased migration strategy, prioritizing critical workloads. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud adoption where stakeholders, driven by perceived cost savings, may overlook critical security and compliance requirements. The professional's task is to balance business objectives with the imperative to adhere to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure (OCI) best practices and foundational security principles, which are paramount for maintaining data integrity and meeting regulatory obligations. The challenge lies in educating stakeholders about the long-term implications of security shortcuts and ensuring that cost optimization does not compromise the security posture. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased migration strategy that prioritizes security and compliance from the outset. This aligns with the principle of security by design and compliance by design, fundamental tenets in cloud governance. By conducting a thorough security assessment and implementing appropriate controls before migrating sensitive data, the organization mitigates risks and ensures adherence to OCI's shared responsibility model. This proactive stance is crucial for preventing data breaches, unauthorized access, and potential regulatory penalties, thereby representing best professional practice. It also aligns with the foundational security principles expected in the 1Z0-1085-20 exam, which stresses the importance of understanding and implementing security controls within OCI. Incorrect approaches analysis. Migrating without a comprehensive security assessment and control implementation is a direct violation of foundational security principles. This approach creates significant vulnerabilities, exposing the organization to data breaches and non-compliance with potential industry-specific regulations or general data protection laws. It demonstrates a failure to understand the shared responsibility model in cloud computing, where the customer is responsible for securing their data and applications within OCI. Focusing solely on cost reduction without considering the security implications of the chosen OCI services is also a failure. Certain services might appear cheaper but lack the necessary security features or compliance certifications required for the organization's data. This oversight can lead to regulatory noncompliance and reputational damage, as it prioritizes short-term financial gains over long-term security and stability. Implementing security controls only after the migration is reactive and significantly increases the risk of a security incident occurring during the transition period. This approach is inherently flawed as it assumes a secure migration, which is unlikely without pre-migration planning and control implementation. It also demonstrates a lack of foresight and adherence to best practices for secure cloud deployments. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach, prioritizing security and compliance throughout the cloud migration lifecycle. This involves understanding the organization's data sensitivity, regulatory requirements, and OCI's security features. A phased migration, starting with less critical workloads and progressively moving to more sensitive ones, allows for iterative security validation and refinement. Continuous monitoring and regular security audits are essential to maintain a robust security posture. Stakeholder education on the importance of security and compliance, even when it impacts immediate cost perceptions, is a critical aspect of professional responsibility. Question 3. To address the challenge of optimizing resource utilization and reducing operational costs within Oracle Cloud infrastructure without negatively impacting application performance or availability, which of the following strategies represents the most effective and professionally sound approach? Option A. Immediately terminate any compute instances that appear to be running for extended periods, regardless of their function or associated services, to achieve rapid cost reduction. Option B. Maintain the current resource allocation and configuration, assuming that all deployed resources are essential and optimally utilized, and defer any cost optimization efforts to a future, undefined date. Option C. Reduce the size of all compute instances by a fixed percentage across the board to ensure a uniform cost saving without verifying current performance metrics. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of resource consumption patterns using OCI cost management tools to identify underutilized or idle resources, and then implement targeted actions such as right-sizing compute instances, deleting unattached storage, or configuring auto-scaling based on demand. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of resource consumption patterns using OCI cost management tools to identify underutilized or idle resources, and then implement targeted actions such as right-sizing compute instances, deleting unattached storage, or configuring auto-scaling based on demand. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in cloud environments: optimizing resource utilization to reduce costs without compromising performance or availability. This requires a nuanced understanding of service usage patterns, cost structures, and the technical capabilities of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI. Professionals must balance the immediate need for cost savings with the long-term implications for application stability and user experience. Failure to do so can lead to either wasted expenditure or service degradation, both of which have significant business consequences. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic analysis of resource consumption and the application of OCI's cost management tools and best practices. This includes leveraging OCI cost management features to identify underutilized resources, such as idle compute instances, unattached block volumes, or under-provisioned databases. Based on this analysis, implementing strategies like right-sizing instances, deleting unused resources, or utilizing OCI's auto-scaling capabilities for dynamic workload adjustments directly addresses the root cause of inefficiency. This aligns with the principle of responsible resource management, which is a cornerstone of efficient cloud operations, and is implicitly supported by the operational guidelines and best practices promoted by Oracle for its cloud services. It demonstrates a proactive and data-driven approach to cost optimization, ensuring that investments in cloud infrastructure are aligned with actual business needs. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves indiscriminately terminating resources without proper analysis. This poses a significant regulatory and ethical risk by potentially disrupting critical business operations, leading to data loss and violating service-level agreements, SLAs. Such an action would be considered negligent and unprofessional, as it disregards the impact on stakeholders and the integrity of the services provided. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on reducing compute instance sizes without considering the impact on application performance. This can lead to performance bottlenecks, increased latency, and a degraded user experience, which can have reputational damage and potentially violate compliance requirements related to service availability and performance standards. It also fails to consider other potential areas of cost savings. A third incorrect approach is to ignore cost optimization altogether, assuming that the current spending is justified. This is professionally irresponsible, as it leads to financial inefficiency and a failure to adhere to best practices in cloud resource management. It represents a missed opportunity to improve the return on investment for cloud services and can lead to budget overruns, impacting financial planning, and potentially leading to scrutiny from financial oversight bodies. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a data-driven, iterative approach to process optimization. This involves establishing clear metrics for resource utilization and cost, regularly monitoring these metrics using OCI's built-in tools, conducting periodic reviews of resource allocation. When identifying optimization opportunities, a thorough impact assessment should be performed, considering performance, availability, and security implications. Implementing changes should be done in a controlled manner, with rollback plans in place. Continuous learning and staying updated with OCI's evolving services and cost management features are also crucial for maintaining an optimized cloud environment. Question 4. The evaluation methodology shows a team that has successfully deployed a new application on Oracle Cloud infrastructure. However, the review process is encountering challenges in determining if the deployment meets the organization's security posture and regulatory compliance requirements. Which of the following evaluation approaches best ensures that the OCI deployment is both secure and compliant, aligning with foundational OCI security principles? Option A. Verify that the application functions as expected and that performance metrics are within acceptable ranges, assuming OCI's default security settings are adequate for the workload. Option B. Rely on the cloud provider's, Oracle's, internal security audits to confirm that the deployed resources are compliant, without requiring specific verification of the organization's configurations. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of identity and access management, EM policies, network security configurations, e.g., security lists, network security groups, and data encryption settings, cross-referencing them against the organization's security standards and relevant compliance mandates. Option D. Focus primarily on the cost-effectiveness of the OCI resources utilized, as cost optimization is a key indicator of a well-managed cloud environment. The correct answer is A. Verify that the application functions as expected and that performance metrics are within acceptable ranges, assuming OCI's default security settings are adequate for the workload. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a common challenge in cloud adoption, balancing the need for rapid deployment with robust security and compliance. In the context of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI Foundation's 2020 Associate, this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires understanding how OCI services integrate with foundational security principles and how to assess their effectiveness without deep technical expertise in every service. The pressure to deliver quickly can lead to overlooking critical security configurations or compliance requirements, which can have significant financial and reputational consequences. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, risk-based evaluation aligned with OCI's shared responsibility model and foundational security best practices. This involves verifying that fundamental security controls are in place, such as identity and access management (EM), policies, network security configurations (e.g., security lists, network security groups, and data encryption. It also involves confirming that the deployed resources adhere to the organization's compliance obligations, which are paramount in regulated industries. This methodical approach ensures that security and compliance are not afterthoughts but are integral to the cloud deployment, thereby minimizing the attack surface and reducing the likelihood of breaches or non-compliance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on functionality and performance without adequate security and compliance checks represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This overlooks the fundamental principle of security by design and the organization's duty to protect sensitive data and maintain regulatory adherence. For instance, neglecting to configure appropriate IAM policies could lead to unauthorized access, a direct violation of data protection regulations and ethical obligations to safeguard customer information. Similarly, failing to implement network segmentation or encryption could expose data to interception or unauthorized disclosure, breaching compliance mandates like those related to data privacy and security. Another incorrect approach might be to assume that OCI's default configurations are sufficient for all use cases, which is a dangerous assumption. OCI provides robust security features, but their effectiveness relies on proper configuration tailored to specific workloads and compliance requirements. Relying on defaults without verification can leave critical security gaps. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the organization's security policies, compliance requirements, and risk appetite. This framework should then guide the evaluation of cloud deployments, ensuring that each component is assessed against these established criteria. A structured checklist, based on OCI best practices and relevant regulatory frameworks, should be used to systematically verify security configurations and compliance adherence. When in doubt, consulting with security and compliance experts or leveraging OCI's security and compliance documentation is crucial. The goal is to achieve a balance where innovation and agility are enabled, but never at the expense of security and compliance. Question 5. The monitoring system demonstrates a sustained spike in CPU utilization for a critical Oracle Cloud Infrastructure database instance, exceeding predefined thresholds. What is the most appropriate immediate action to ensure service continuity and operational integrity? Option A. Immediately scale up the database instance to a larger shape to accommodate the increased load. Option B. Investigate the root cause of the CPU spike by analyzing database logs, query performance, and recent application changes. Option C. Ignore the spike, assuming it is a temporary fluctuation that will resolve on its own. Option D. Disable monitoring for the database instance to prevent further alerts while the issue is investigated. Correct answer is B. Investigate the root cause of the CPU spike by analyzing database logs, query performance, and recent application changes. Explanation. The monitoring system demonstrates an anomaly in resource utilization, specifically a sustained spike in CPU usage for a critical database instance. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires immediate action to prevent potential service disruption and data integrity issues, while also considering cost implications and adherence to operational best practices. The urgency of the situation demands a swift yet informed decision-making process. The correct approach involves leveraging Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, monitoring and alarming capabilities to automatically trigger a notification to the operations team. This is best professional practice because it aligns with the principle of proactive incident management. By setting up appropriate alarms based on predefined thresholds for CPU utilization, the system can alert the relevant personnel before the issue escalates to a critical failure. This allows for timely investigation and remediation, minimizing downtime and potential impact on users or business operations. This approach is also implicitly supported by OCI's design for operational efficiency and resilience, encouraging the use of its built-in tools for managing cloud resources effectively. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the anomaly, assuming it is a transient issue. This fails to acknowledge the potential for cascading failures and the responsibility to maintain service availability. Ethically, this demonstrates negligence in operational oversight. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately scale up the database instance without further investigation. While scaling might resolve the immediate performance issue, it could lead to unnecessary costs if the spike is due to an inefficient query or a temporary workload. This approach bypasses the diagnostic phase, which is crucial for understanding the root cause and implementing a sustainable solution. It also fails to adhere to principles of responsible resource management and cost optimization, which are increasingly important in cloud environments. A third incorrect approach would be to disable monitoring for that specific resource to avoid alerts. This is a severe ethical and professional failure, as it actively conceals potential problems and undermines the entire purpose of a monitoring system. It directly violates the principle of transparency and accountability in system management. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes rapid assessment, informed action, and continuous improvement. This involves 1. Detection, utilizing monitoring tools to identify anomalies. 2. Assessment, quickly analyzing the nature and potential impact of the anomaly. 3. Action, implementing appropriate remediation steps which may include investigation, alerting, or immediate intervention. 4. Verification, confirming that the issue is resolved and monitoring for recurrence. 5. Root cause analysis, investigating the underlying cause to prevent future occurrences. In this scenario, the immediate action should be to investigate the cause of the CPU spike, informed by the alert generated by the monitoring system. Question 6. The performance metrics show a consistent pattern of high latency for a critical application hosted on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI. Which of the following actions is the most appropriate initial step to address this issue? Option A. Initiate a comprehensive review of OCI monitoring and logging services to identify the specific components contributing to the latency. Option B. Immediately scale up all compute instances associated with the application to the next larger shape. Option C. Increase the network bandwidth allocated to the OCI Virtual Cloud Network, VCN, hosting the application. Option D. Manually restart all application servers and database instances to clear any potential temporary glitches. Correct answer is B. Immediately scale up all compute instances associated with the application to the next larger shape. Explanation. The performance metrics show a consistent pattern of high latency for a critical application hosted on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly impacts user experience and business operations, potentially leading to financial losses and reputational damage. The core of the challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the latency and implementing a solution that balances performance, cost, and adherence to OCI best practices and foundational principles. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation using OCI's monitoring and logging services to pinpoint the source of the latency. This might involve analyzing network traffic, compute resource utilization, database performance, and storage I/O. The decision to scale up compute resources, optimize database queries, or adjust network configurations should be data-driven and aligned with OCI's recommended architectural patterns for high availability and performance. This approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes understanding the problem before implementing a solution, minimizing the risk of introducing new issues or incurring unnecessary costs. It also leverages the tools and services provided by OCI, demonstrating proficiency in managing cloud resources effectively. An incorrect approach would be to immediately and arbitrarily scale up all resources without proper diagnosis. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and potentially violates principles of resource optimization and cost management, which are implicit in responsible cloud governance. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the metrics altogether, assuming the issue will resolve itself. This is a failure of professional responsibility and could lead to significant business disruption, violating the implicit ethical obligation to maintain service availability and performance. A third incorrect approach is to implement a quick fix without understanding the underlying cause, such as simply restarting services. While this might offer temporary relief, it fails to address the root problem and could lead to recurring issues, demonstrating a lack of thoroughness and potentially violating the principle of providing reliable services. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with problem identification and data gathering, followed by hypothesis generation and testing. This involves utilizing OCI's observability and management services to collect relevant metrics and logs. Once a probable cause is identified, potential solutions should be evaluated based on their effectiveness, cost implications, and adherence to OCI best practices. A phased rollout or a /B testing can be employed to validate the chosen solution before full implementation. Continuous monitoring is crucial to ensure the problem is resolved and to detect any new issues. Question 7. Consider a scenario where a development team is under pressure to launch a new customer-facing application on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI, within a tight deadline. They propose to skip the formal risk assessment process during the initial development phase, planning to address security and compliance concerns only after the application is live and has gained initial traction. Which of the following approaches best aligns with professional best practices for risk management in this context? Option A. Perform a superficial risk assessment focusing only on the most obvious and immediate security threats, assuming the cloud provider's inherent security features will cover other potential risks. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies potential threats, vulnerabilities, and impacts, and integrate mitigation strategies into the development roadmap before deployment. Option C. Rely exclusively on the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure's built-in security features and compliance certifications, without conducting any specific risk assessment for the application's unique configuration and data handling. Option D. Defer the entire risk assessment process until the application is fully operational and has a significant user base, to gather real-world usage data for a more accurate assessment. Correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment that identifies potential threats, vulnerabilities, and impacts, and integrate mitigation strategies into the development roadmap before deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for rapid deployment of a new application with the imperative to conduct a thorough risk assessment. The pressure to deliver quickly can lead to shortcuts in security and compliance processes, potentially exposing the organization to significant vulnerabilities. The challenge lies in integrating risk assessment as a proactive and essential part of the development lifecycle, rather than an afterthought. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the risk assessment is comprehensive enough to identify potential threats and vulnerabilities, without unduly delaying critical business initiatives. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves integrating a risk assessment framework early in the application development lifecycle. This aligns with best practices for cloud security and compliance, as mandated by general principles of responsible cloud adoption. By identifying potential risks such as data breaches, unauthorized access, and service disruptions during the design and development phases, mitigation strategies can be implemented proactively. This approach ensures that security and compliance are built into the application from the ground up, reducing the likelihood of costly remediation efforts later and demonstrating due diligence in protecting sensitive data and maintaining service integrity. This proactive stance is fundamental to a robust security posture in any cloud environment. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to defer the risk assessment until after the application has been deployed and is in production. This represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It violates the principle of security by design and increases the likelihood of encountering vulnerabilities that could lead to data breaches or compliance violations. From a regulatory perspective, failing to adequately assess and mitigate risks before deployment can be seen as negligence, potentially leading to fines and reputational damage. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of responsibility towards protecting customer data and ensuring the reliability of the service. Another incorrect approach is to conduct a superficial risk assessment that only focuses on obvious threats, neglecting more subtle or emerging risks. This is professionally unacceptable because it provides a false sense of security. A flawed risk assessment can lead to the implementation of inadequate security controls, leaving the application vulnerable to sophisticated attacks or unforeseen operational issues. This failure to perform due diligence in identifying and assessing all relevant risks can have severe consequences, including regulatory noncompliance and significant financial losses. Third incorrect approach is to rely solely on the cloud provider's security measures without conducting an independent risk assessment of the application's specific configuration and data handling. While cloud providers offer robust security, the shared responsibility model means that the customer is responsible for securing their applications and data within the cloud. Ignoring this responsibility and assuming the provider's security is sufficient is a critical oversight. This can lead to misconfigurations, improper access controls, and data exposure, all of which are direct failures in risk management and can result in regulatory penalties. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to cloud application development. This involves establishing a clear process for risk identification, assessment, and mitigation that is integrated into every stage of the development lifecycle. Key steps include: 1. Define the scope of the risk assessment, considering the application's functionality, data sensitivity, and regulatory requirements. 2. Identify potential threats and vulnerabilities relevant to the cloud environment and the specific application. 3. Analyze the likelihood and impact of identified risks. 4. Prioritize risks based on their potential severity. 5. Develop and implement appropriate mitigation strategies and controls. 6. Regularly review and update the risk assessment as the application evolves and the threat landscape changes. This systematic process ensures that risks are managed effectively, promoting a secure and compliant cloud deployment. Question 8. The investigation demonstrates that a cloud administrator, while performing routine monitoring of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure resources, has identified a potential security misconfiguration that could expose sensitive customer data. The administrator is aware of the organization's formal change management process, which requires a minimum of 48 hours for review and approval of any infrastructure modifications, and also knows of the dedicated security incident response team. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the cloud administrator? Option A. Proceed with the standard 48-hour change management process to get the misconfiguration approved for correction. Option B. Report the identified misconfiguration to the security incident response team and await their guidance on remediation. Option C. Publicly disclose the security misconfiguration on a technical forum to alert the wider community. Option D. Immediately attempt to rectify the misconfiguration to prevent any potential data exposure. documenting the changes afterward. The correct answer is D. Immediately attempt to rectify the misconfiguration to prevent any potential data exposure, documenting the changes afterward. Explanation. The investigation demonstrates a scenario where a cloud administrator, responsible for managing Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI, resources, discovers a potential security vulnerability. This vulnerability, if exploited, could lead to unauthorized access to sensitive customer data. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need to address the security risk with the established procedures for change management and incident response within the organization. The administrator must consider the potential impact of their actions on ongoing operations, compliance requirements, and the trust placed in them by the organization and its clients. The correct approach involves adhering to the organization's incident response plan, which is designed to systematically identify, contain, eradicate, and recover from security incidents. This plan typically includes protocols for escalating the issue to the appropriate security teams, documenting all actions taken, and communicating with relevant stakeholders. By following these established procedures, the administrator ensures that the response is coordinated, effective, and compliant with any relevant data protection regulations or industry best practices that OCI services are expected to uphold. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of unintended consequences and demonstrates professional accountability. An incorrect approach would be to immediately attempt to patch the vulnerability without proper authorization or documentation. This bypasses established change control processes, which are crucial for maintaining the stability and security of the OCI environment. Such an action could inadvertently cause service disruptions, introduce new vulnerabilities, or violate compliance mandates related to change management. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the vulnerability, hoping it goes unnoticed. This is a clear ethical and professional failure, as it demonstrates negligence and a disregard for the security and privacy of customer data, potentially leading to severe legal and reputational damage. A third incorrect approach might be to disclose the vulnerability publicly before it is fully understood and addressed, which could alert malicious actors and exacerbate the risk to the organization and its customers. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that prioritizes security and compliance. This involves understanding the organization's policies and procedures, assessing the severity and potential impact of the discovered issue, and escalating it through the designated channels. When faced with a security concern, the first step should always be to consult the incident response plan and relevant security guidelines. If unsure, seeking guidance from senior security personnel or the compliance department is essential. Documenting all observations and actions is paramount for accountability and post-incident analysis. Question 9. Upon reviewing the cost optimization proposals for migrating customer data to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, a stakeholder suggests utilizing the most cost-effective object storage region globally to minimize expenditure. However, the compliance officer has raised concerns about data residency requirements for sensitive customer information, which may be subject to specific jurisdictional laws. What is the most appropriate approach to balance cost savings with regulatory compliance in this scenario? Option A. Select an OCI region that demonstrably meets all applicable data residency and privacy regulations for the sensitive customer data, even if it is not the absolute cheapest option, and explore interregion data transfer options for analytics if permissible and secured. Option B. Proceed with storing all sensitive customer data in the globally cheapest OCI region to achieve maximum cost savings, assuming that OCI's infrastructure inherently provides sufficient compliance. Option C. Replicate all sensitive customer data across multiple OCI regions without verifying the data residency compliance of each individual region to ensure availability and potentially spread risk. Option D. Disregard the compliance officer's concerns and implement the cost-saving measure immediately, as the primary objective is to reduce operational expenses. The correct answer is A. Select an OCI region that demonstrably meets all applicable data residency and privacy regulations for the sensitive customer data, even if it is not the absolute cheapest option, and explore interregion data transfer options for analytics if permissible and secured. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data residency and compliance within the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI ecosystem. The challenge lies in balancing the business need for cost-effective data storage with the stringent regulatory requirements for data localization, particularly concerning sensitive customer information. A failure to adhere to these regulations can lead to significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The stakeholders' perspective, focused on immediate cost savings, creates a tension with the compliance officer's mandate to protect the organization from legal and regulatory repercussions. Careful judgment is required to identify a solution that is both economically viable and legally sound. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging OCI's regional capabilities to store data in a jurisdiction that meets regulatory requirements, while potentially utilizing OCI's interregion data transfer services for analytics or disaster recovery, if permitted and secured appropriately. This aligns with best professional practice because it directly addresses the core compliance concern of data residency. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure is designed with a global footprint, allowing customers to select specific regions for data storage. By choosing a region that complies with the relevant data protection laws, e.g., GDPR if applicable, or specific national laws, the organization ensures it is meeting its legal obligations. This proactive approach demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to regulatory adherence, which is paramount in cloud deployments. Incorrect approaches analysis. Storing all data in the cheapest available OCI region without verifying its compliance with data residency laws is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach prioritizes cost over compliance, potentially violating data protection statutes that mandate where certain types of data can be stored or processed. It exposes the organization to legal action and fines. Utilizing OCI's object storage across multiple regions without a clear understanding of data residency implications for each region is also problematic. While OCI offers global services, the default behavior or configuration might not automatically enforce data localization. Without explicit configuration and verification, data could inadvertently reside in non-compliant regions, leading to regulatory breaches. Ignoring the compliance officer's concerns and proceeding with the cheapest storage option based solely on cost is a direct ethical failure. It demonstrates a disregard for legal obligations and the potential harm to customers whose data might be mishandled. This also undermines the internal governance structure designed to ensure compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach when making decisions about cloud infrastructure. This involves 1. Identifying all relevant regulatory and legal requirements pertaining to data residency and privacy for the specific types of data being handled. 2. Understanding the capabilities and limitations of the chosen cloud provider, OCI, regarding regional data storage and data transfer. 3. Collaborating closely with compliance and legal teams to validate proposed solutions against regulatory mandates. 4. Evaluating the total cost of ownership, which must include the potential costs of noncompliance, fines, legal fees, reputational damage, alongside direct cloud service costs. 5. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them, ensuring transparency and auditability. Question 10. The efficiency study reveals that the organization's Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI environment, is experiencing significant overprovisioning of compute and storage resources, leading to higher than anticipated operational costs. The goal is to optimize these resources to reduce expenditure while maintaining application performance and availability. Option A. Implement a uniform reduction in the number of compute instances across all applications and services. Option B. Implement OCI auto-scaling for compute resources based on utilization metrics and configure lifecycle management policies for object storage to move data to cooler tiers over time. Option C. Manually reduce the shape of all compute instances and decrease the allocated storage capacity across all services without further analysis. Option D. Migrate all data to the cheapest available OCI storage tier immediately to maximize cost savings. The correct answer is B. Implement OCI auto-scaling for compute resources based on utilization metrics and configure lifecycle management policies for object storage to move data to cooler tiers over time. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in cloud environments. balancing cost optimization with performance and availability requirements. The efficiency study highlights a potential overprovisioning of resources, which directly impacts operational expenditure. The professional challenge lies in making informed decisions about resource scaling without compromising the application's ability to meet user demand or adhere to service-level agreements, SLAs. This requires a deep understanding of OCI services, their cost implications, and the trade-offs involved in different scaling strategies. The urgency implied by the efficiency study adds pressure to act decisively, but haste can lead to suboptimal or even detrimental outcomes. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased and data-driven strategy. Initially, leveraging OCI's auto-scaling capabilities for compute resources, like compute instances or container engine for Kubernetes nodes, is the most professional practice. Auto-scaling automatically adjusts the number of resources based on predefined metrics e.g., CPU utilization, network traffic, ensuring that capacity scales up to meet demand and scales down during periods of low activity. This directly addresses the efficiency study's findings by right-sizing resources dynamically, thereby reducing costs without sacrificing performance. Furthermore, for storage, implementing lifecycle management policies for object storage buckets is crucial. This automates the movement of data to less expensive storage tiers, e.g., archive storage, as it ages and becomes less frequently accessed, further optimizing costs. This approach aligns with best practices for cloud resource management, emphasizing agility, cost-effectiveness, and adherence to performance SLAs. Incorrect approach is analysis. Manually reducing compute instance shapes and storage capacity without a thorough analysis of current and projected workloads is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach risks underprovisioning, leading to performance degradation, application downtime, and potential breaches of SLAs. From a regulatory perspective, failing to meet contractual obligations, SLAs, can have legal and financial repercussions. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the impact on end users and the business. Implementing a blanket reduction in all compute instances and storage tiers without considering the specific needs of different applications or services is also professionally unacceptable. This is a blunt instrument that ignores the nuanced requirements of various workloads. Some applications might be CPU-bound, while others are I/O-bound or memory-intensive. A uniform reduction could cripple critical services while having little impact on others. This lack of granular analysis is a failure in professional judgment and can lead to unintended consequences, including service disruptions and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach is to solely focus on reducing costs by migrating all data to the cheapest storage tier immediately. While cost savings are important, this ignores data access patterns and retrieval times. Migrating frequently accessed data to archive storage, for example, would result in prohibitively high retrieval costs and latency, severely impacting application performance and user experience. This demonstrates a failure to understand the implications of different storage tiers and their impact on application functionality, leading to potential SLA violations and increased operational complexity. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic, data-driven decision-making process. This involves 1. Understanding the findings of the efficiency study and identifying the specific areas of concern. 2. Analyzing current and historical resource utilization metrics for compute, storage, and network. 3. Forecasting future resource needs based on business growth and anticipated usage patterns. 4. Evaluating OCI's native services for auto-scaling, lifecycle management, and cost optimization. 5. Developing a phased implementation plan that prioritizes critical services and minimizes risk. 6. Continuously monitoring performance and costs post-implementation to make further adjustments as needed. This iterative and analytical approach ensures that decisions are informed, justifiable, and aligned with both business objectives and best practices for cloud resource management. Question 11. Examination of the data shows that a customer is reporting intermittent access issues to their critical business data stored within Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. The customer is requesting immediate data restoration to a previous point in time to resolve the problem. However, preliminary checks suggest a potential underlying issue with the data itself, rather than a simple availability problem. What is the most appropriate course of action for the cloud provider? Option A. Initiate a diagnostic process to identify the root cause of the access issues and communicate findings and propose solutions to the customer. Option B. Proceed with a partial data restoration to a recent backup, assuming this will resolve the intermittent access problem. Option C. Inform the customer that data access issues are their responsibility and deny further assistance until they provide a specific cause. Option D. Immediately perform a full data restoration to the earliest available backup without further investigation. The correct answer is A. Initiate a diagnostic process to identify the root cause of the access issues and communicate findings and propose solutions to the customer. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a customer's request for immediate data access and the cloud provider's responsibility to maintain data integrity and security, especially when potential data corruption is suspected. The core of the dilemma lies in balancing customer satisfaction with adherence to established operational procedures and the implicit trust placed in the cloud provider to safeguard data. Careful judgment is required to avoid hasty actions that could exacerbate the problem or violate service-level agreements. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and documented investigation. This aligns with the principles of responsible cloud service management, which emphasize data integrity, security, and transparent communication. By initiating a diagnostic process and engaging with the customer to understand the scope of the issue, the cloud provider demonstrates a commitment to resolving the problem effectively and ethically. This proactive and methodical response minimizes the risk of further data loss or corruption and builds customer confidence through a structured problem-solving methodology. Adhering to established incident response protocols, which are often implicitly or explicitly part of service agreements, is crucial. An incorrect approach that involves immediately attempting to restore data without proper diagnosis is professionally unacceptable. This action bypasses critical diagnostic steps, potentially leading to the restoration of corrupted data or the overriding of valid data with incorrect versions. This failure constitutes a breach of professional duty to maintain data integrity and could violate service-level agreements regarding data availability and accuracy. Another incorrect approach, such as denying the customer access to their data without a clear, documented reason and a proposed resolution timeline, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of customer service and transparency, potentially leading to a breach of trust and contractual obligations. It fails to uphold the principle of providing timely and appropriate access to customer data, even in the face of technical challenges. Finally, an approach that involves making assumptions about the cause of the data issue without investigation is a significant ethical and professional failure. This can lead to incorrect remediation efforts, wasted resources, and ultimately, a failure to resolve the customer's problem, thereby undermining the provider's credibility. The professional reasoning process for such situations should involve a clear incident response plan. This plan should outline steps for initial assessment, diagnosis, communication, remediation, and post-incident review. When faced with a suspected data issue, professionals should first gather all available information, document the observed symptoms, and then follow established diagnostic procedures. Communication with the customer should be timely, transparent, and focused on understanding their perspective and informing them of the steps being taken. Decisions regarding data manipulation, such as restoration or modification, should only be made after thorough investigation and with clear justification, ensuring that all actions are logged and auditable. Question 12. Performance analysis shows a critical bottleneck impacting application responsiveness in a production Oracle Cloud infrastructure environment. The team requires access to detailed logs, which unfortunately contain sensitive customer information, to pinpoint the exact cause. What is the most responsible and compliant course of action to address this performance issue? Option A. Proceed with analyzing the raw logs directly, as the data is already within a secure cloud environment. Option B. Anonymize or pseudonymize the sensitive customer data within the logs before conducting the performance analysis. Option C. Refuse to perform the analysis until a new, less sensitive dataset can be generated, even if it delays resolution. Option D. Analyze the raw logs but only share the findings with a very limited internal team. Correct answer is B. Anonymize or pseudonymize the sensitive customer data within the logs before conducting the performance analysis. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma concerning data privacy and compliance within the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure (OSI) environment. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate business need for performance insights with the regulatory obligation to protect sensitive customer data. Misinterpreting or mishandling this data can lead to severe legal repercussions, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The professional must exercise careful judgment to ensure that any analysis or action taken adheres strictly to data protection principles and relevant regulations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves anonymizing or pseudonymizing the sensitive customer data before performing performance analysis. This aligns with the principle of data minimization and purpose limitation, which are fundamental to data privacy regulations. By removing or obscuring personally identifiable information, PI, the organization can gain the necessary performance insights without compromising individual privacy. This proactive measure ensures compliance with data protection laws, such as those that might be referenced in a U.S. context, e.g., HIPAA for health data, CCPA for California consumer data, or general principles of data privacy that underpin many cloud service agreements. It demonstrates a commitment to ethical data handling and risk mitigation. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to directly analyze the raw performance data containing PII without any form of anonymization or pseudonymization. This is a direct violation of data privacy principles and potentially specific regulations. It exposes the organization to significant risks of data breaches and unauthorized access, leading to regulatory fines and legal action. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the performance analysis request entirely due to concerns about data privacy. While caution is important, outright refusal without exploring compliant alternatives hinders business operations and problem solving. It fails to address the underlying performance issues that the analysis was intended to resolve and may indicate a lack of understanding of how to balance business needs with compliance. A third incorrect approach is to assume that since the data is in the cloud, it is automatically protected and can be analyzed freely. This is a dangerous misconception. Cloud environments require diligent security and privacy practices from both the provider and the customer. Relying solely on the cloud provider's security without implementing appropriate data handling procedures for sensitive information is a failure of due diligence and regulatory compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals in cloud environments must adopt a risk-based approach to data handling. When faced with a request for analysis of potentially sensitive data, the decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the type of data involved and its sensitivity. 2. Understanding the relevant regulatory requirements and organizational policies. 3. Evaluating the business need for the analysis. 4. Exploring and implementing appropriate data protection techniques, e.g., anonymization, pseudonymization, access controls. 5. Documenting the process and decisions made. 6. Seeking legal or compliance counsel if uncertainties exist. This systematic approach ensures that business objectives are met while upholding ethical standards and regulatory obligations. Question 13. Operational review demonstrates that a development team has identified a new Oracle Cloud Infrastructure (OSI) service that they believe will significantly accelerate their project timeline. The team is eager to integrate this service immediately without undergoing a formal evaluation process, citing the urgency of their project deadlines. What is the most appropriate approach for the organization to take in this situation, considering the need for agility and adherence to governance principles? Option A. Initiate a formal risk assessment and compliance review process for the new OCI service, involving relevant stakeholders from security, compliance, and finance, before allowing its adoption. Option B. Approve the use of the new OCI service based on the development team's recommendation and the vendor's marketing materials, assuming it meets general industry standards. Option C. Allow the development team to integrate the new OCI service immediately to meet project deadlines, with a promise to review its compliance and security posture retrospectively. Option D. Grant the development team permission to use the new OCI service, but instruct them to implement their own security measures and document any compliance concerns they encounter. The correct answer is A. Initiate a formal risk assessment and compliance review process for the new OCI service, involving relevant stakeholders from security, compliance, and finance, before allowing its adoption. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud environments where the rapid pace of innovation and deployment can outstrip the formalization of governance processes. The challenge lies in balancing the need for agility and developer productivity with the imperative to maintain security, compliance, and cost control. Without a clear decision-making framework, teams may default to expediency, leading to potential security vulnerabilities, compliance violations, or uncontrolled expenditure, all of which have significant implications for an organization operating within a regulated industry. The absence of a defined process for evaluating new services creates a risk of shadow IT or the adoption of services that do not align with the organization's risk appetite or regulatory obligations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a structured, risk-based evaluation before adopting new cloud services. This aligns with best practices for cloud governance and security frameworks, which mandate a proactive assessment of potential impacts. By establishing a clear process that involves security, compliance, and finance teams, the organization ensures that all relevant perspectives are considered. This approach promotes informed decision-making, allowing for the identification and mitigation of risks before they materialize. It also fosters a culture of accountability and ensures that service adoption is aligned with business objectives and regulatory requirements, such as data residency, privacy, and auditability, which are critical for maintaining trust and avoiding penalties. Incorrect approaches analysis. Adopting a new service solely based on developer preference without any formal review process is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses essential security and compliance checks, potentially exposing sensitive data to unauthorized access or noncompliance with data protection regulations. This approach ignores the organization's responsibility to protect customer data and adhere to industry-specific mandates. Implementing a new service without consulting the security and compliance teams, even if a general policy exists, is also problematic. It suggests a lack of understanding or disregard for the critical role these functions play in risk management. This can lead to the adoption of services that are incompatible with existing security controls or regulatory frameworks, creating a compliance gap and increasing the organization's attack surface. Relying solely on the vendor's assurances of compliance without independent verification or internal assessment is another failure. While vendors provide documentation, organizations have a due diligence obligation to ensure that the services meet their specific requirements and risk tolerance. This approach outsources critical risk assessment responsibilities, which is not permissible under most regulatory regimes that place the ultimate responsibility on the data controller or processor. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a risk-based approach to cloud service adoption. This framework should include 1. Initial assessment of business need and potential impact. 2. Consultation with relevant stakeholders, security, compliance, legal, finance. 3. Technical and security review against organizational standards and regulatory requirements. 4. Cost-benefit analysis and budget alignment. 5. Formal approval and documentation of the decision. This structured process ensures that decisions are not only technically sound, but also compliant, secure, and financially responsible, fostering a robust governance posture. Question 14. Analysis of a scenario where a U.S.-based financial services company is migrating sensitive customer data to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI. The company's compliance officer has expressed concerns about meeting U.S. federal regulations, specifically regarding data residency and access controls for financial data. The IT team is proposing to use a standard OCI compute and storage service without explicitly verifying its compliance status for financial data regulations. Which of the following approaches best ensures regulatory compliance for this scenario? Option A. Proactively identify all applicable U.S. federal regulations for financial data. Consult OCI's compliance documentation to confirm the specific services chosen are certified or eligible for those regulations, and ensure the deployment adheres to the customer's configuration responsibilities for compliance. Option B. Assume that all services within Oracle Cloud Infrastructure are inherently compliant with all U.S. federal regulations for financial data, as Oracle is a reputable cloud provider. Option C. Proceed with the migration using standard OCI services and address any compliance issues that may arise after the data has been migrated. Option D. Rely on the general compliance statements provided by Oracle for their cloud platform, without investigating specific service certifications or customer configuration requirements. Correct answer is A. Proactively identify all applicable U.S. federal regulations for financial data. Consult OCI's compliance documentation to confirm the specific services chosen are certified or eligible for those regulations, and ensure the deployment adheres to the customer's configuration responsibilities for compliance. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud environments where shared responsibility models can lead to confusion regarding compliance obligations. The professional must navigate the nuances of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure's OCI shared responsibility model and understand where Oracle's responsibilities end and the customer's begin, particularly concerning data residency and regulatory adherence. The challenge lies in accurately identifying the customer's specific compliance requirements and ensuring the chosen OCI services and configurations meet those demands, rather than making assumptions based on general cloud provider assurances. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the customer's specific regulatory obligations, such as those mandated by U.S. federal or state laws, and then mapping these requirements to the available OCI services and their compliance certifications. This requires consulting OCI's official documentation on compliance and security, specifically looking for services that are certified or attested for the relevant regulatory frameworks. For example, if the customer is subject to HIPAA, the professional must verify that the OCI services being used are HIPAA eligible and that the customer has configured them in a HIPAA-compliant manner. This proactive and documented verification process ensures that the deployed solution meets the customer's legal and regulatory mandates, demonstrating due diligence and adherence to best practices in cloud governance. Incorrect approaches analysis. Relying solely on the general compliance statements of a cloud provider without verifying specific service applicability and customer configuration responsibilities is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach assumes that all services within a cloud platform inherently meet all regulatory requirements, which is rarely the case due to the shared responsibility model. It can lead to non-compliance, data breaches, and severe legal penalties. Assuming that all data stored in OCI is automatically compliant with all relevant U.S. regulations without specific configuration or service selection is another failure. Compliance is not a passive state. It requires active configuration and adherence to specific service-level agreements and best practices dictated by the regulatory framework. Failing to document the compliance verification process and the specific OCI services chosen for compliance purposes is a professional and ethical lapse. This lack of documentation makes it impossible to audit or demonstrate compliance if required by regulatory bodies or during an incident investigation. It also undermines accountability. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to cloud compliance. This involves 1. Identifying all applicable regulatory frameworks and legal requirements relevant to the customer's data and operations. 2. Understanding the OCI shared responsibility model and clearly delineating responsibilities between Oracle and the customer. 3. Thoroughly researching OCI services and their specific compliance attestations and certifications against the identified regulatory frameworks. 4. Designing and configuring OCI solutions to meet these specific requirements, including data residency, access controls, and encryption. 5. Implementing robust monitoring and auditing mechanisms to ensure ongoing compliance. 6. Maintaining comprehensive documentation of all compliance-related decisions, configurations, and verifications. Question 15. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire to reduce operational costs associated with data storage. The IT department is exploring options for migrating data to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI. While reviewing OCI services, a team member proposes selecting the most cost-effective storage tier without a detailed review of its security features or compliance certifications, arguing that all cloud storage is secure enough. Which approach best addresses this situation while adhering to professional best practices and regulatory considerations? Option A. Implement a tiered storage strategy where the cheapest tier is used for all data, regardless of its classification or regulatory requirements. Option B. Immediately select the most cost-effective OCI storage tier to achieve the desired cost savings, assuming the vendor's general security assurances are sufficient. Option C. Rely on the vendor's marketing materials for OCI storage services to determine the most suitable option, focusing primarily on advertised cost benefits. Option D. Conduct a thorough evaluation of OCI storage tiers, prioritizing those with robust security features and relevant compliance certifications that align with the organization's data sensitivity and regulatory obligations, even if they are not the absolute cheapest. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough evaluation of OCI storage tiers, prioritizing those with robust security features and relevant compliance certifications that align with the organization's data sensitivity and regulatory obligations, even if they are not the absolute cheapest. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for cost reduction with the long-term implications of data security and compliance. The decision maker must navigate the complexities of cloud service provider offerings, understanding that the cheapest option may not always be the most secure or compliant, especially when dealing with sensitive data. Careful judgment is required to avoid compromising regulatory obligations and stakeholder trust. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough assessment of security and compliance requirements before selecting a cloud service. This aligns with the principle of security by design and demonstrates due diligence in protecting sensitive data. By engaging with security and compliance teams, the organization ensures that any chosen cloud solution meets or exceeds the necessary regulatory standards, thereby mitigating risks of data breaches, fines, and reputational damage. This proactive stance is crucial in maintaining customer confidence and adhering to the spirit and letter of relevant regulations. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering security and compliance is professionally unacceptable. This failure represents a direct violation of data protection principles and potentially specific regulatory mandates that require appropriate technical and organizational measures to safeguard data. Such an approach could lead to significant financial penalties, legal liabilities, and a severe loss of trust from customers and partners. Another incorrect approach that involves selecting a service based on vendor marketing claims without independent verification is also professionally unsound. This demonstrates a lack of critical evaluation and reliance on potentially biased information, which can lead to the adoption of solutions that do not meet actual security and compliance needs. This oversight can result in a false sense of security and expose the organization to unforeseen risks. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured decision-making framework. This framework should begin with clearly defining the requirements, including security, compliance, and performance. Next, it should involve a comprehensive evaluation of potential solutions, considering not just cost but also features, vendor reputation, and support. Crucially, this evaluation must include consultation with relevant internal stakeholders, such as security, legal, and compliance teams, to ensure all aspects are thoroughly vetted. Finally, the decision should be documented, with clear justification based on the comprehensive assessment, ensuring accountability and transparency. Question 16. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood of a critical security vulnerability being introduced if new OCI services are deployed without a thorough security and compliance review prior to their go-live date. A development team is pushing for rapid deployment of a new customer-facing application, citing aggressive market timelines. They propose to conduct a full security and compliance audit only after the application is live and processing customer data, which approach best balances the need for rapid deployment with the imperative of maintaining a secure and compliant OCI environment. Option A. Deploy the application immediately to all customers and instruct the security team to prioritize the audit of this new application within the first week of its operation. Option B. Defer the deployment of the new application until a complete, formal security and compliance certification for the application itself is obtained from an external third-party auditor, even if this significantly delays the market entry. Option C. Proceed with the full deployment as planned, relying on OCI's inherent security features to protect the application and its data, and schedule a comprehensive security and compliance audit for 3 months post-launch. Option D. Implement a phased rollout of the new application, with initial deployments to a limited user group, allowing for real-time security monitoring and rapid iteration based on observed behavior and potential threats before a full public release. The correct answer is D. Implement a phased rollout of the new application, with initial deployments to a limited user group, allowing for real-time security monitoring and rapid iteration based on observed behavior and potential threats before a full public release. Explanation: Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid innovation and the need for robust security and compliance with an Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OSI. The rapid deployment of new services, while beneficial for business agility, can introduce unforeseen vulnerabilities or misconfigurations if not adequately assessed against established security and governance policies. The pressure to deliver quickly can lead to shortcuts in the review process, potentially exposing the organization to risks that are not fully understood or mitigated. Professional judgment is required to balance the speed of innovation with the imperative of maintaining a secure and compliant cloud environment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a proactive and integrated security and compliance review as part of the service development lifecycle. This aligns with OCI's shared responsibility model and best practices for cloud governance. Specifically, it emphasizes the importance of incorporating security and compliance checks early in the development process, rather than as an afterthought. This includes leveraging OCI's native security services and adhering to established OCI security best practices and compliance frameworks relevant to the data being handled. This approach ensures that potential risks are identified and addressed before deployment, minimizing the likelihood of security breaches, data loss, or regulatory noncompliance. It reflects a mature security posture where security and compliance are embedded into the operational fabric, not bolted on. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves solely relying on post-deployment security audits. This is professionally unacceptable because it represents a reactive rather than proactive security strategy. Regulatory frameworks and OCI best practices emphasize preventative measures. Waiting until after deployment to identify security gaps means that vulnerabilities may have already been exploited, leading to potential data breaches, reputational damage, and regulatory fines. Another incorrect approach is to bypass OCI's built-in security controls and compliance features to accelerate deployment. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. OCI provides a suite of tools designed to help customers meet their security and compliance obligations. Ignoring these tools not only increases the risk of misconfiguration and security incidents, but also demonstrates a disregard for the vendor's security recommendations and potentially industry-standard compliance requirements. It can lead to non-compliance with data protection regulations and OCI's terms of service. A third incorrect approach is to assume that OCI's foundational security services automatically guarantee compliance for all deployed applications. While OCI provides robust security infrastructure, the customer is responsible for configuring and managing security controls for their specific workloads and data. Assuming automatic compliance without proper configuration and ongoing monitoring is a critical oversight that can lead to regulatory violations and security vulnerabilities. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to cloud adoption and development. This involves understanding the organization's risk appetite, identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities, and implementing appropriate controls. When developing or deploying new services on OCI, a structured process should be followed that includes 1. Threat modeling, identifying potential threats to the service and its data. 2. Security design review, ensuring that security principles are incorporated into the service design. 3. Compliance assessment, verifying that the service meets relevant regulatory and industry compliance requirements. 4. Testing and validation, thoroughly testing security controls before and after deployment. 5. Continuous monitoring, implementing ongoing monitoring to detect and respond to security incidents. By integrating these steps into the development lifecycle, professionals can ensure that new services are deployed securely and compliantly, minimizing risk and maximizing the benefits of cloud adoption. Question 17. Research into a customer's deployment of a sensitive financial application on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure reveals that they are utilizing OCI's managed database services. The customer asserts that since the database is managed by Oracle, all associated security and compliance responsibilities are automatically fulfilled. The professional responsible for ensuring regulatory adherence needs to determine the actual compliance posture. Option A. Focus solely on auditing the application code for security vulnerabilities, assuming the underlying cloud infrastructure is compliant by default. Option B. Verify the customer's application architecture and configurations against the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Shared Responsibility Model and relevant financial industry regulations to identify specific customer obligations. Option C. Accept the customer's assertion that Oracle's management of the database service inherently covers all regulatory compliance requirements for the application. Option D. Rely entirely on the customer's internal compliance team's self-assessment report without independent validation of the OCI environment. Correct answer is B. Verify the customer's application architecture and configurations against the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Shared Responsibility Model and relevant financial industry regulations to identify specific customer obligations. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud environments where shared responsibility models can lead to confusion regarding security and compliance obligations. The professional is tasked with ensuring a customer's application deployed on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, adheres to specific industry regulations. The challenge lies in accurately identifying the boundaries of OCI's responsibilities versus the customer's responsibilities, especially when the customer is leveraging managed services. Misinterpreting these boundaries can lead to compliance gaps, security vulnerabilities, and potential regulatory penalties. The need for precise understanding of OCI's shared responsibility model and the specific compliance requirements of the customer's industry is paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the customer's application architecture, the specific regulatory requirements applicable to their industry, e.g., HIPAA for healthcare, PCI DSS for payment card data, and the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Shared Responsibility Model documentation. This model clearly delineates which security and compliance tasks are managed by Oracle and which are the customer's responsibility. By cross-referencing the customer's implementation with these documented responsibilities and regulatory mandates, the professional can accurately assess compliance status and identify any necessary remediation steps. This approach ensures that all parties understand their obligations, leading to a robust and compliant cloud deployment. It aligns with the principle of due diligence in ensuring regulatory adherence. Incorrect approaches analysis. Assuming OCI handles all security and compliance aspects for managed services without verification is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. The shared responsibility model explicitly states that customers retain responsibility for data security, access management, and application-level security, even when using managed services. Relying solely on the customer's self-assessment without independent verification is also professionally unacceptable. This bypasses the due diligence required to confirm compliance and could lead to overlooking critical gaps. Furthermore, focusing only on the application's code without considering the underlying OCI services and their configurations would be incomplete, as the infrastructure layer also has compliance implications. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic approach to cloud compliance. This begins with understanding the specific regulatory landscape relevant to the customer's business. Next, they must thoroughly familiarize themselves with the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Shared Responsibility Model. The process should involve a detailed assessment of the customer's deployed architecture, mapping each component and its security controls against both regulatory requirements and the shared responsibility matrix. Regular audits and continuous monitoring are essential to maintain compliance. When in doubt, consulting OCI documentation, support, or specialized cloud compliance experts is a prudent step. Question 18. Compliance review shows that a development team is proposing to use a new Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, object storage feature for storing customer-related data. The team believes this feature will significantly accelerate their application development cycle. However, the organization has strict data residency and access control policies in place due to regulatory mandates. Which of the following approaches best ensures adherence to these policies while enabling the team to leverage the new OCI feature? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive assessment of the new OCI object storage features capabilities against the organization's data residency and access control policies, and implement necessary configurations and controls before deployment. Option B. Allow the use of the new OCI object storage feature, but instruct the team to manually encrypt all data before uploading it, without verifying OCI's encryption capabilities or access logging. Option C. Immediately approve the use of the new OCI object storage feature, assuming the cloud provider's default security settings are sufficient and the team's development needs are paramount. Option D. Advise the development team to store all customer data in a separate, on-premises system to avoid any potential compliance issues with new cloud services. The correct answer is C. Immediately approve the use of the new OCI object storage feature, assuming the cloud provider's default security settings are sufficient and the team's development needs are paramount. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in cloud environments, balancing the need for rapid development and deployment with the imperative to maintain robust security and compliance. The core professional challenge lies in ensuring that the adoption of new cloud services does not inadvertently introduce vulnerabilities or violate established data governance policies, especially when dealing with sensitive information. Careful judgment is required to assess the risks associated with each service and to implement appropriate controls without unduly hindering innovation. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, risk-based evaluation of new cloud services against existing compliance frameworks and security policies. This proactive stance ensures that any new service is vetted for its ability to meet regulatory requirements, such as data residency, access control, and audit logging, before it is integrated into production workflows. This aligns with the principle of security by design and demonstrates a commitment to responsible cloud adoption, minimizing the likelihood of breaches or non-compliance. An incorrect approach that involves deploying new services without a thorough security and compliance assessment is professionally unacceptable. This failure represents a significant regulatory and ethical lapse. It demonstrates a disregard for data protection laws and organizational policies, potentially exposing sensitive data to unauthorized access or disclosure. Such an approach increases the risk of costly data breaches, reputational damage, and legal penalties. Another incorrect approach, which is to rely solely on the cloud provider's default security configurations without independent verification, is also professionally deficient. While cloud providers offer robust security features, the shared responsibility model dictates that the customer is responsible for configuring and managing security within their cloud environment. Over-reliance on defaults without understanding and validating them against specific compliance needs can lead to security gaps and non-compliance. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a multi-step approach. First, clearly define the compliance and security requirements relevant to the data and workloads being considered for the cloud service. Second, conduct a thorough risk assessment of the proposed cloud service, evaluating its features, data handling practices, and certifications against these requirements. Third, implement appropriate security controls and configurations to mitigate identified risks and ensure compliance. Finally, establish ongoing monitoring and auditing processes to ensure continued adherence to policies and regulations. Question 19. Process analysis reveals that a multinational organization is expanding its use of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, for sensitive customer data. The organization operates under strict data residency regulations in several key markets, requiring that customer data be stored and processed exclusively within the geographical boundaries of those specific markets. The implementation team is tasked with ensuring that all OCI resources and data associated with these markets are compliant with these jurisdictional mandates. Which of the following approaches best addresses this data residency requirement within OCI? Option A. Empowering individual application development teams to independently manage data residency for their respective services, with the expectation that they will adhere to relevant regulations without centralized infrastructure-level enforcement. Option B. Implementing robust application-level encryption for all customer data, assuming that encrypted data is inherently compliant with data residency regulations regardless of its physical storage location. Option C. relying on OCI's global network infrastructure to automatically manage data placement and ensure compliance with local data residency laws across all deployed services. Option D. Deploying OCI resources and services within OCI regions that precisely align with the defined regulatory jurisdictions, ensuring all data is stored and processed within those designated geographical boundaries. The correct answer is D. Deploying OCI resources and services within OCI region that precisely align with the defined regulatory jurisdictions, ensuring all data is stored and processed within those designated geographical boundaries. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in cloud environments, ensuring data residency and compliance with evolving regulatory landscapes. The challenge lies in balancing the need for global accessibility and performance with strict jurisdictional requirements for data storage. Misinterpreting or inadequately addressing these requirements can lead to significant legal, financial, and reputational damage. The professional challenge is to proactively identify and implement solutions that meet these mandates without compromising the core functionality or security of the cloud service. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging Oracle Cloud infrastructures, OCI region and availability domain constructs to explicitly control data placement. By deploying resources within a specific OCI region that aligns with the defined regulatory jurisdiction, organizations ensure that their data resides within the geographical boundaries mandated by those regulations. This proactive configuration, often documented in an OCI region selection strategy, demonstrates due diligence and adherence to compliance requirements. It represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the data residency mandate at the foundational infrastructure level, minimizing the risk of non-compliance. This aligns with the principle of privacy by design and security by design within cloud deployments. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to assume that OCI's global network automatically satisfies all data residency requirements. This is a failure because OCI's global services, while offering broad reach, do not inherently guarantee data will remain within a specific jurisdiction unless explicitly configured to do so. Relying on this assumption can lead to data being processed or stored outside the permitted boundaries, violating regulatory mandates. Another incorrect approach is to solely rely on application-level encryption without considering the physical location of the data. While encryption is crucial for data security, it does not address the jurisdictional requirement of where the data is stored. Data can still reside in a non-compliant location even if it is encrypted, leading to regulatory violations. A third incorrect approach is to delegate the responsibility of data residency compliance entirely to the end users or application developers without providing clear guidance or enforcing infrastructure-level controls. This creates a fragmented compliance posture and increases the likelihood of accidental noncompliance, as individual teams may not fully understand or prioritize the specific jurisdictional needs. It represents a failure in establishing a robust governance framework for cloud deployments. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to cloud implementation, prioritizing compliance requirements from the outset. This involves 1. Understanding the specific regulatory frameworks applicable to the data being handled. 2. Mapping these requirements to OCI's service offerings and geographical regions. 3. Designing the cloud architecture with explicit controls for data placement, such as selecting appropriate OCI regions. 4. Documenting the compliance strategy and regularly reviewing it against evolving regulations. 5. Implementing monitoring and auditing mechanisms to verify ongoing adherence to data residency policies. Question 20. Which approach would be most effective for optimizing resource utilization and managing costs within an Oracle Cloud infrastructure environment, while ensuring continued performance and availability of applications? Option A. Decommission any resources that have not been accessed in the last 30 days without further investigation. Option B. Immediately reduce the size of all virtual machines and databases to the lowest possible tier to achieve maximum cost savings. Option C. Rely on team members' experience and intuition to identify and reconfigure resources that appear to be over-provisioned. Option D. Conduct a thorough analysis of current resource usage patterns, identify underutilized or idle resources, and leverage OCI cost optimization tools and services to implement targeted adjustments. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough analysis of current resource usage patterns, identify underutilized or idle resources, and leverage OCI cost optimization tools and services to implement targeted adjustments. Explanation: the scenario presents a common challenge in cloud environments, optimizing resource utilization to manage costs and performance without compromising service availability or compliance. The professional challenge lies in balancing these competing demands. A hasty decision could lead to overspending, underperformance, or even regulatory noncompliance if not carefully considered. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it involves a systematic, data-driven methodology. By analyzing current resource usage patterns, identifying idle or underutilized resources, and leveraging Oracle Cloud Infrastructure (OCI) services designed for cost optimization, a team can make informed decisions. This aligns with the principle of responsible resource management, which is implicitly expected in professional cloud operations. Furthermore, adhering to OCI best practices for cost management, which are often documented and recommended by Oracle, ensures that the optimization efforts are aligned with industry standards and vendor guidance, thereby minimizing operational and financial risks. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost reduction without considering performance implications could lead to service degradation, impacting user experience and potentially violating service-level agreements (SLAs). This demonstrates a failure in understanding the interconnectedness of cost, performance, and availability. Another incorrect approach that involves blindly decommissioning resources based on superficial metrics without thorough investigation risks removing critical components, leading to service outages and potential data loss. This highlights a lack of due diligence and a failure to adhere to sound operational procedures. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or guesswork rather than data analysis indicates a departure from professional rigor and a susceptibility to making costly errors. This approach lacks the objective basis required for sound decision-making in a cloud environment. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding business requirements and performance objectives. This is followed by comprehensive data collection and analysis of current resource utilization. Next, potential optimization strategies should be evaluated based on their impact on cost, performance, and availability. Finally, changes should be implemented incrementally, with continuous monitoring and validation to ensure desired outcomes are achieved and no unintended consequences arise. This iterative and data-driven process ensures that optimization efforts are effective, efficient, and aligned with overall business goals.